Hello. The idea of gardens for pleasure rather than simply food was introduced to England by the Romans. A Roman garden, based on archaeology, has been reconstructed at the site of a grand Roman villa at Fishbourne near Chichester, usually open to visitors from February through to November. Niches in the box hedges would have held statues. Pleasure gardens made a return in the castle gardens of the medieval period. When Henry III had the Great Hall at Winchester Castle built in 1235, he ordered the construction of 3 gardens at the same time. The Great Hall still stands, but the gardens have long since disappeared, and only a few remains of the castle survive. Hampshire Garden Trust came up with the idea of recreating an authentic medieval garden in a secluded triangle of land at the sunny rear of the Great Hall. They persuaded Hampshire County Council, a team was assembled, and in 1986 their vision was realised. Named Queen Eleanor's Garden, after Eleanor of Provence, wife of Henry III, and her daughter-in-law Eleanor of Castile, wife of Edward I. There were different types of medieval gardens, including physic plots for medicinal plants and kitchen gardens with vegetables. At Winchester, the decision was taken to create a pleasure garden of the sort described in 1260 by the eminent Dominican theologian Albertus Magnus, a small herber fit for a queen, purely for enjoyment, a green refuge filled with sensory herbs and scented flowers and foliage where a queen might relax with her ladies in waiting. A great deal of thought and research went into the design of the garden in order to make it as authentic as possible, informed by archaeology, old texts and illuminated manuscripts. All the plants are examples of those grown in 13th century ornamental gardens. Among them are red and white roses, flag irises, Madonna lilies, peonies, columbine, eglantine and violets, with lavender, hyssop, fennel and chamomile. A rose-covered trellis has a turf seat, inspired by an illustration for an episode in an epic poem by Boccaccio concerning the marriage of Emilia. Emilia is shown in her garden weaving a wreath of flowers for her hair. At Queen Eleanor's garden, roses, honeysuckle and vines shade an arbour based on the one shown behind Emilia in the illustration. Tudor gardens reflected classical Renaissance influences from Europe. Intricate knot gardens, typically of clipped box with aromatic plants, were popular. Designed to be best seen from above, raised mounts were often built into the corner of the garden to provide an overhead view. This is the recreated knot garden at Sudeley Castle, based on the pattern of a dress worn by Elizabeth I in a portrait on display in the castle. French and Dutch garden fashion had an impact in the Stuart and Jacobean periods. Designs became more geometric. Parterres replaced knot gardens. This is a mid-17th century example, recreated by English Heritage at Boscobel House in Shropshire, complete with arbour and viewing mound. Formal topiary was in vogue, here recreated by the National Trust at Ham House near Richmond, as were rectangular water features and canals. This is the Long Water at Rest Park in Bedfordshire, an English heritage property. A move to a more natural look began in the early 18th century. Influential garden designer Charles Bridgeman fused the formality of French and Dutch gardens with areas of grass and woodland to create parks with winding paths leading to viewpoints, buildings and statues. One French idea he adopted was the ha-ha, a walled ditch preventing animals straying too close while retaining an uninterrupted view, bringing nature closer to the house. Among the country house gardens Bridgeman worked on are those of Stowe House near Buckingham, now looked after by the National Trust, and Rousham House in Oxfordshire, privately owned but open to the public. His work at Stowe and Rousham was continued by landscape architect William Kent. Not much of a horticulturalist, but who developed the natural landscape look, albeit dotted with idealised buildings from antiquity, including at Chiswick House for Lord Burlington. Unlike Kent, Lancelot Capability Brown, the most famous name in English landscape design, was a hands-on gardener, serving an apprenticeship at Kirkharle Hall, Northumberland, now a farmhouse, and moving on to work at several estates before joining the gardening staff at Stowe House in 1741 under the supervision of William Kent. Taking freelance work alongside his duties at Stowe made his name known, and in 1751 Brown left to pursue an independent career, during which he worked on some 200 parks and estates, typically composed of rolling grassland, clumps of woodland, follies and serpentine lakes connected by bridges and cascades, beginning with Croom Court in Worcestershire, now in the care of the National Trust. The grounds at Blenheim Palace are another fine example of Brown's landscape style. The pendulum of fashion swung back in the late 18th and early 19th centuries with the reintroduction of formal elements and separate flower beds, notably by Humphrey Repton. Victorian gardens became a mix of informal landscape and high-maintenance opulence. The gardens at Whitley Court in Worcestershire, designed by William Nesfield and now looked after by English Heritage, are an example from when the house was remodelled in the 19th century. The Italianate mansion was gutted by a fire in 1937 and survives today as a roofless ruin. Next time, the threats and challenges to traditional country house life that multiplied from the late 19th century. If you've enjoyed this video, hit the like and subscribe buttons and click on the notification bell to be informed when the next video is available, or you can subscribe by clicking on the rose window over my shoulder.